the teacher did not want me back, but I couldn't understand the way he was teaching, and the way he was showing us how to do the problems. I would get the answers right, but I would do it in a different way with a different formula, and he would fail me.
Yeah, and that was probably part of the ignorance of the illness or the disorder.
Right. Well,
showing
it
up.
was the fact that they didn't know about it until 13, 14 years later.
Yeah.
But it's just an example. The neurotypical way of doing things and the autistic way of doing things, we both end up at the same answer. We just went two different ways to get there.
Right. Now, how has autism affected your gameplay when we come into Dungeons and Dragons?
I'll tell you what, it's really helped in the last, since we've gone to COVID. Believe it or not, I still like getting together in the back of the comic book shop and hanging out with the peeps and playing and everything. But with Discord and D&D Beyond, I now have all my information in big enough letters for me to read right in front of me that I can just easily access with a couple clicks of a mouse.
Yeah, and that's been a great.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah,
it keeps track of my spells for me. It tells me what I have to. I don't have to ask you anymore to double check. Is this because I already know.
Yeah, and how about as far as like your symptoms go? How has Dungeons and Dragons affected that or helped that?
Well, I guess we're going to reverse this now. Pre-COVID, it was helping because I was in a room with 15, 20 or so.
Yeah.
Nerds, a lot of who were probably on the spectrum, but it got me around like-minded people and eventually feeling more comfortable in a group setting. And it got me out there with friends, with you and Michael and Dominic and Glory and Teffy, and that other guy who came every once in a while.
Yeah.
But
but then after COVID, how has that helped you? I know it's helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it still after COVID? Is it after COVID really?
Well, missed of it. I mean, I guess we talk about like after COVID, like AD versus BC. After the COVID was announced.
In Branson, we're still wearing masks.
Yeah.
Springfield, we're still wearing masks.
Yeah.
So, I think this is a kind of in between period, a transition period.
Yeah. Transition to what? I don't know, but
exactly.
So how has Dungeons and Dragons helped with you coping with COVID, the COVID shutdown, lockdown?
You know what? It's given me something to look forward to, especially when we were playing 2 nights a week. It gave me something where I knew I would be communicating and interacting with other people. And it really just was something to look forward to and know I would have fun and I'd be talking some smack and explaining it to a couple other guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Thing one and thing two.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've been finding out, especially in recent months, is the therapeutic value of Dungeons and Dragons.
And they're doing so many different things with Dungeons and Dragons now. They've now created a game that allows you to have a character in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So they're bringing in different, forms of characters to align with, where we are today.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons as a brand has certainly embraced diversity. Yes. And I think that's one of the things that's been built upon from its very beginning with, the different races that you had and everything like that was the sense of diversity among different people.
Mm-hmm. But I think they're doing great, and I think it's great that they're bringing in, and the fact that in besides the wheelchair, the fact that you can create your character any color you want, any race you want. I mean, you can be a half elf, but you can be an Asian half elf. You can be a Latino half elf. You can be a gay half elf. You can be lesbian half elf, trans half elf.
Yeah.
Whatever you want your character to be.
And that's part of the beauty of the game, is that the chance to be anything you want, to step into somebody else's shoes, and
Right.
and that feeds into what makes it such great in therapy, is that it gives you an opportunity also to practice your social skills, your coping mechanisms, and stuff like that in a safe environment. Where the
Yeah.
worst that can happen is you have character death. And that's it.
Well, one trait that is common, and I say common because Dr. Stephen Mark Shore, who is an autistic professor of autism, said, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, meaning there's so many different traits that a person can have, but nobody has all of them. We each have our own individual unique sets.
So what are some of these traits that you mentioned?
Being socially awkward, being nonverbal, being hyperlexic, dyslexic, panic attacks, you know what? If you wouldn't have asked me, I could have told you more.
That's okay.
But you put me on the spot.
Yeah, I told you I was going to do anything from left field, but I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no. Hey, no. It's all good. It's my fault. It's my fault. Okay, so anyway, so with dishonesty, a lot of us have a problem with the concept of dishonesty. I mean, just as to why somebody would do that and be dishonest. So for me, I love playing a high elf rogue who is a thief and a con artist.
Yeah.
So for me, that's, I just love doing it because it lets me get out of my normal character.
Yeah. And I play, I like playing Poog, the goblin paladin, who's also a drug addict too, who has a problem with poisonous toads.
Yeah. So. You know what? That's a trait I might add for the. Remind me, we'll talk about that off air.
Yeah.
I might add drug addict to my next high elf rogue.
Now, let's talk a little bit about accommodations and stuff like that. Accommodations, for those that are not familiar with this term, is a term that we use in the disability community to talk about making certain changes in order to make it accessible for everybody, whether it's allowing more extra time for somebody to take a test, or giving a material early to somebody so they can read it on their own at their own pace and comprehend it before class or a certain other event. Little things like that go a long way. And so, like with autism, we got a game that we're working on trying to put together for kids on the autism scale. What kind of accommodations should we look at?
A year ago, I took 2 classes at junior college just because I wanted to, which you can ask me a year later why I did that, and I still can't give you a good answer. But I had 3 accommodations. I had extra time for tests. I was able to get my books on PDF so that I could have them on my iPad or my computer. And I had, because I have a sensory processing issue where when somebody's speaking and I'm taking notes, I can't keep up with them fast enough, to keep what's going on. So they loaned me one of the smallest iPads you can get, and all it had loaded on it was Messenger and Skype. And what I would do is they had my class schedule. I would go to class, I would log into Skype, and there was somebody there I would sit in the front row where the teacher was speaking, and they would listen to the whole lecture, type it out, and about 12 hours later, I would have a copy of the lecture.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
but accommodations, what you're talking about now, accommodations for Dungeons and Dragons, I think not really accommodations as much as helping and finding their way to learn, and then teaching
such as providing an assistant
right.
in the game.
I don't think there's any real accommodations that I foresee in Dungeons and Dragons as much as just helping each of them on their individual level.
Right. And then that's the other thing that about the game is, we're going by not age, but by ability, because you could have a 30-year-old man who's nonverbal and a 16-year-old who's able to hold a simple or even a complex job. So it goes all over that's why they call it a spectrum, because there's nobody in any, you can't peg anybody in any particular hole.
Right. But one thing you need to keep in mind is that I don't believe that people that are higher functioning are any better than people that are lower functioning. I think we all have our strengths. I think we all have our weaknesses. We all have our place that we fit in, Some of them can't speak up for themselves. I speak up for them. They support me. We all work together for the same cause. So,
and that goes right into another thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is what you actually do with your time.
I spend a lot of my time writing. In April, I'm going to spend a lot of my time speaking, and starting a podcast at the end of April that's going to be every other week. So I will be podcasting, and I will be writing, and hopefully continuing to speak to groups about what autism is, what autism isn't, why we need to get rid of the puzzle piece as a symbol for autism, and neurodiversity.
So why should we get rid of the puzzle piece for autism?
Because that's a very outdated. It was probably good. It was good for the time and what they knew, but we're no longer a puzzle that has to be put together in a correct way. We are who we are. So it was great back then, for what they knew. But I think now with what we know, that we don't have to try to be formed just like everybody else. That's why I think the puzzle piece is a bad idea.
Okay.
Because it shows conformity.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Now, let's talk a little bit about our game that we do have coming up, which is the League of Extraordinary Adventurers. Why don't you go ahead and explain what that is all about?
Well, Jason and I sat around probably out of our minds, and we decided to use parts of The Princess Bride, The Legend of King Arthur, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and The Three Musketeers. And we took elements of each and we wrote a game. You will find Tim the Enchanter. You will find the Bunny and the Holy Hand Grenade. What else will we find?
Well, I don't want to give it all away, but yeah, of course, Merlin's wand and King Arthur's sword and his crown, and then a separate magical item after that. But the game itself, though, is focused
and the players are the Musketeers.
Yes, and the players are the Musketeers too. And the game is focused on kids and young adults that are on the autism spectrum.
And people that are new to the game.
Yeah, and also we've opened it up to people new to the game as well. Why? What would be the benefits of Dungeons and Dragons for somebody who is on the spectrum?
Social, completely social. A lot of people are very antisocial. I mean, for example, me, I've only got a couple of friends that I ever do anything with, and you're the person I do almost everything with.
Yeah.
So, it gets them to be social, even if they're not doing it in person.
Right.
So it really helps them socially. It helps them speak up for themselves. It helps them with their processing and thinking about what they want to do and how they want to do it.
Right. Especially with the way the turn base is, it gives them a chance of saying, all right, my turn's coming up. What am I wanting to do? And it gives them a chance to process ahead of time.
And I'm there to help. I'm there to help them with options, but I'm never going to tell them what they should do.
Right. And to explain to everybody what JR's role is, I would be the dungeon master, and he's my co-dungeon master, whose sole role it is just to assist the players with the mechanics of the game and not necessarily with the playing of the character or anything like that. And
Well,
so that's what his role is. Oh, yeah, you do give them options and stuff like that if they're stuck, but...
Right. I mean, I'm going to let them do their thing until they ask me, what should I do? And then I'll tell them what they can do. And then let them make their decision from what they can do. Or tell them, when you say make a dexterity saving throw, okay, that's on the top left of your screen.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I mean by the mechanics of it, especially is helping them, until they get more acclimated to the game. And the nice thing about 5th edition is it's very intuitive in how you learn how to play. You learn better playing it by playing it than you do by going through the book and reading the rules and stuff like that, like I did.
Oh my God, yes. I read the rules and I'm like, screw this. I'll just play and figure it out.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I had a background in Dungeons and Dragons already, so when I went through the rules, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that's a lot better idea doing it that way, and so I saw a lot of the positives versus the older editions that I had played, with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition or Pathfinder 3.5, and stuff like that. And so I saw a lot of improvements on the game, and especially in how it's set up more towards role playing than it is on combat and finding and stuff like that.
For sure. I mean, for example, if you watch older episodes of The Big Bang Theory when they played Dungeons and Dragons, that's all it was going in and killing things. Nothing about the characters.
Yeah, and then,
which was older Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, and that what we call either a Monty Python or hack and slash. Is what we used to call that. Yeah, I mean, when I started Dungeons and Dragons, I got it at the Stars and Stripes store, which was, if for those of you not familiar with what that is, that's the Barnes and Noble for the military. So it's, cool. but they're not around anymore. The last store closed down years ago, but they were also the newspaper for the military as well. They still exist in digital form. But I don't know when the last print went out of print, though, on their newspaper. But that was a paper we read during the wartime in Vietnam and World War II and stuff like that. So anyway,
it was going, even when I was in the Navy in the late 90s or late 80s.
Yeah, I mean, it was still in print then. But in the Stars and Stripes stores were back in the 80s. It was right around the 90s. Mid 90s to late 90s that they started shutting them all down.
Huh.
So I remember when the last one closed, it sucked. Because then I'm like, well, shit, now what? Because there was nowhere else to get books or anything else. So you were shit out of luck without the Stars and Stripes store. But that was where I got all my Dungeons and Dragons stuff. They had gotten a huge shipment in. And I spent all the money I earned my summer job buying up every book that they had. Player's Handbook, Dungeons Master's Guide, the Monsters Manual, but it came in a 3-ring binder. which was super sweet because you could take the cut pages out, of the monsters you were using, and then you had them right at your fingertips, and then put them back, and and a bunch of other guides and stuff like that. I spent like almost $2,000 worth of stuff on stuff. And to get started, I put an ad in the local paper on base, the base paper on Atsugi Base. And there's a naval air facility at Atsugi, Japan, is where we were at. And I got one reply. And it was a guy he had graduated from high school the year before, but not from our high school, from a stateside. Came over with his parents as a dependent, and was just kind of working at a hotel, the base hotel, for just from extra cash and stuff like that. But he had used to play Dungeons and Dragons, so I agreed to be the dungeon master. I'd never played the game in one day in my life, and I decided to go ahead and become the dungeon master. Just because I read the book and I was like, all right, I got this concept. I kind of got an idea how this works, so go ahead and give this a shot. And the game went off. I don't even remember how the game went off. I just know that we had a great time.
That's awesome.
And that was what it really became about. And these two, and this guy and another friend of his was also an older kid that had graduated from high school. He was 18, 19 years old now, and he was also playing the game. And so it was basically the three of us. And yeah, I mean, he was like my only friend, and that was only because they weren't in high school. I had huge trouble in high school with bullying and stuff like that. And so, especially because I was a minority in my high school. Most of the kids there were Filipino, and a good number were black, but it was most of the Filipino kids I had problems with, and yeah. But so it's like
Hey,
go ahead.
I gotta get going in about 2-3 minutes.
All right, man, and I'm gonna have to go to commercial break. So thank you so much for tuning in.
No problem. And don't forget, everybody, April is Autism Awareness Month, so think about autistic people and try to read an article or two about autism.
All right. Also, where can they find your new podcast?
It's going to be on differentbrains.org, but it won't be until late April.
Awesome.
But if they go to the facebook.com/notweirdjustautistic, I'll have updates on it.
Excellent. All right, man. Well, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Jay. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break just for a few minutes.
2021 just got better. Your favorite shows from WLFE DB Radio can now be found on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Yes, we now video stream to both of those platforms. Search for your favorite shows like Where's My Sage, Inside the Drag Closet, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Paratalk Radio, Step into the Paranormal, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and more. Now you won't miss an episode. Remember, follow Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Make sure you subscribe and follow your favorite WLFE DB radio shows. This award-winning thriller has it all. Murder, political intrigue, mob revenge, and a bit of romance. Not to mention strong female and male characters with a storyline that could be tomorrow's headline news. Now, for a quick peek into our story. To help solving a nationwide plot involving the assassination of several U.S. senators, the O'Rourke team is called in. To complicate matters, they now have to work against the clock to rescue one of their own. You see, the mob didn't take too kindly to the O'Rourke team's involvement last spring. It seems to have led to the indictment of their boss. Will they succeed? Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com. You're listening to WLFE-DB Radio. Now, back to our program.
Okay, thank you so much. And just putting up right here, we had a last minute cancellation of one of our guests. So trying to edit. All right. And paste. Oops. Huh. Oh, okay, I know why. Okay, sorry about that. Didn't mean to give so much dead air. Just trying to get that put up there. If you're on StreamYard and like to be on the show, that's the link right there. I'm not sure how the best way to post this up any other way other than putting it right there. Anyways, oh, got comments. Hey, Genevieve, I see you now. Sorry, I had got a little distracted here. Genevieve is on. See Suki also. Okay. Sorry about this. Kind of been playing around here. Got kind of caught off guard with the last minute cancellation, but what we were going to be talking about was we're talking about service dogs, and in particular, psychiatric service dogs. Now, a service dog under the Americans with Disabilities Act is defined as the following. Service animals are defined as dogs that are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. Examples of such work or tasks include guiding people who are blind, alerting people who are deaf, pulling a wheelchair, alerting or protecting a person who is having a seizure, reminding a person with mental illness to take prescribed medications, calming a person with post-traumatic stress disorder during an anxiety attack, or performing other duties. Service animals are working animals, not pets. The work or task a dog has been trained to provide must be directly related to the person's disability. So, kind of break that down is, first of all, service dogs or service animals are recognized first and foremost only as dogs, except for one exception only, and that is with the miniature horse. And those are very rare cases, just because they're not used very often. But they are used often enough that there is a exception in the Americans with Disabilities Act for miniature horses. But otherwise, service animals are only service dogs, so they are dogs only, not cats, not peacocks, or any other species of animal. And they are trained working animals. They are considered under the law basically as medical equipment. So my service dog, Harper, is a psychiatric service dog. She's not a pet. So for my apartment complex, there's a sizable pet deposit, but I don't have to pay it for her because she's not a pet. And there's also a limit in the number of dogs I can have here. And I was limited to 2. For a time, I had 3, but now I'm back down to Harper and just one other dog, Snoopy. And but She's only considered medical equipment. Now, that doesn't mean that I treat her like medical equipment or anything like that. You know, she's not a machine. She's still a dog, but she just has a legal definition that makes her exempt from a lot of stuff under the Fair Housing Act. Now, a psychiatric service dog is a dog that's trained to perform particular tasks as it relates to a person's disability or psychiatric illness, such as, let's just take, for example, post traumatic stress disorder. A dog that's trained for that, if a person's having anxiety, an anxiety attack, they can interrupt that attack by nudging, licking, or otherwise trying to distract their handler from what's going on in their head. And it's an interesting way of on how to train your dog in order to detect such things. And the way it's done is done in stages. You don't go just from, all right, here's my dog, and now I'm going to train him just to go straight to knowing when I'm having a psychiatric emergency to go ahead and start licking my hand. What you do first is you learn what's called the touch command, and that's where you get the dog to touch your hand. First, starting with the treat in your hand, to say touch. They smell the treat. They touch they touch your hand with their nose. Eat the treat. You repeat several times until they start getting it, and then you start doing it without it, and then you start doing the touch command. Without the treat, and them to touch your hand whenever you say the word touch. From there, you move to them. In my case, I want my dog, to jump on my lap or put their paws on my lap when I'm having a emergency, and so it goes from there to having my hand on my lap and then saying touch, and then they touch with their nose, and they start learning to also. That it's okay for them in those cases to jump on my lap. And then we go through a couple other stages of moving the touch command, and then finally transferring it over to them recognizing a sign or symptom that I have, such as rapid breathing, hyperventilating, before I have an attack. And so it's a fascinating how these dogs are trained. And now that after having Harper for several months, and going through a lot of training myself, a lot of it's self-taught. I'm very confident in training my next service dog. Now, a psychiatric service dog, like I said, they're trained to do certain tasks. Like in the case of somebody with anxiety, they are to help distract them or keep them, help them calm down. Another way to do that, like if I have a change in breathing pattern, the dog will start alerting their handler. Usually by nudging is the most common way they do it, nudging the hand. Excuse me. Difficulty navigating, especially if you're in a crowded area or someplace like that and you want to find an exit. You can train your dog to say, like with exit, as would be like the common command, and the dog would then lead you to the nearest exit that gets you out of the situation you're in. And it's very helpful, especially with PTSD and other anxiety disorders. Um, Dizziness, this is most especially important with larger dogs, being used as a brace or counterbalance for the handler. A lot of times these dogs will have a special harness on them with the handle that the handler can grab a hold of and use it for counterbalancing and stuff like that. Um, let's see, and social withdrawal. Well, withdrawal. Kind of explain how my story with Harper. A little over a year ago, Harper was rescued by JR, actually, who you just saw on here. I remember it because he was late for a Dungeons and Dragons game because he had to drive to Hollister, Missouri to rescue a dog and then drive the dog all the way up to El Dorado Springs, Missouri for to be accepted into Sean's Dogs Nation for her to train the dog as a service dog. And Harper was, she's a pit bull mix, and she is, unfortunately, she was deemed too vicious to be adoptable. And when JR went to examine her and to take her out and kind of see what she's like, he said that the only thing that people are in danger of is being licked to death. And yeah, it was very interesting how uh, things come around where this dog that Jr. Rescues turns around and saves me because excuse me. Um, when COVID hit, it hit me pretty hard, the lockdown. Now, I was not a very social person to begin with, and I'm still not. But what little social interaction I got was just simply ground to a halt because of COVID. So I mean, I even had gotten a job with the census department for a temporary job, and I couldn't even hold that. I mean, my social anxiety was getting so bad that I couldn't go outside for more than 1 to 2 hours. And so I started researching service dogs and really looking into them. And then I found out how much they cost. And a service dog, on average, costs between $20,000 and $40,000. Yeah, 20 to 40 grand for a dog, and it's mostly because of the training they go through and the handler, and sometimes also with the breed too, especially if they're a purebred dog. There's a believe it or not, there's a lot of elitism that goes on within the service dog community, especially against certain breeds. Certain breeds are looked down upon, or the origin, where the dog came from a shelter versus a breeder. So that goes on a lot within the service dog community, and it was a surprise when it had happened to me when I ran into that. But with Harper, she had became available to me for free at no cost to me, and that was what made me able to get a service dog, because it really was a game changer, because I was isolated, I was depressed, I couldn't get out or anything like that. And Harper made it so that I could go out a lot of times, because I had to go out, to take her out to go potty and stuff like that, but also to go to stores, and I had other tasks that the therapist had given me for desensitization. And um, yeah, it really was a game changer having her come into my life and having this other creature to take care of, in addition to Snoopy, and how much she is into me too. That's the other thing that's really interesting. I've never had a pit bull before, so I don't know if this is a pit feature or if this is a service dog feature. But she is just so in tune to me, my emotional state, and what I'm going through and stuff like. Well, anyways, since having Harper, I've been going out a lot more. I've gotten over most of my social anxiety. I still have issues every now and again, but for the most part, that has not been an issue at all. Thanks to Harper, we have our favorite stores that we go to, and we've not had any issues whatsoever as far as discrimination for her having a service dog or anything like that. And yeah, and so it's been great, but it's not for everybody. I mean, everybody, I get this a lot, where it's just like how great it is to be able to take your dog everywhere. And I'm sorry, but it's kind of like traveling with a toddler sometimes, because she has her equipment. I got to strap her into the seatbelt, her seatbelt and harness. I got to take her out when I get her out of the car, and and then going in and out of stores, I have to be very mindful of her too, because she is still a dog, you know, and there she has good days and she has her bad days, you know. Fortunately, she doesn't have very many bad days, but when she does, she's not on her A game, and so I don't want to push her any harder than I have to, you know. And so there'll be days when I can't take her out just because she's just not having a good day and not having any of it. That kind of leads me into my other thing, which is fake service dogs. Now, a big thing that's coming up on the internet is people so-called exposing fake service dogs. And the problem, though, with this is that one, there is no central agency in the United States that certifies service dogs. So there's no agency to call and say, is this service dog real or not? It doesn't exist. Canada has one, other countries have it, but the United States does not. It's kind of like the Wild West out here when it comes to service dogs. There is no certification for training. Anybody can say they are training service dogs. Owners can train their own service dogs, which, now don't get me wrong, I'm not against that because I plan to do that myself, just because I can't afford 30 grand for a dog. But um, there's, you know, but when it comes to whether or not somebody's just went on eBay, bought themselves a service dog vest so they can take Fido to Home Depot or whatnot, you know, I don't know how often that really happens or not. I just know this. I've seen a lot of poorly trained service dogs, and so I will not call out anybody as a fake service dog or having a fake service dog, but I will say whether or not they have a well trained or a poorly trained service dog. Case in point, a few weeks ago, me and Harper were in Walmart, and because of traffic leading up to a major holiday or following a major holiday, we were forced to pass by another service dog team pretty close. There was a guy in a wheelchair with a smaller breed dog, more the acceptable breeds, so to say. Well, anyways, as we're passing by, that dog just started going off on Harper, barking, 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 and stuff like that, lunging and pulling on the leash. And so, but Harper, though, to her credit, didn't even give the dog a second look. She completely ignored the dog, which was what she was supposed to do. And, you know, kudos to Harper right there for that. So, anyways, when it comes to, but the thing about it is I wouldn't call that guy out as having a fake service dog. I would just say he had a poorly trained one. Because if your owner training the dog, you're not going to have anybody that says, yep, that dog passed. Nope, that dog fails. You know, you don't have that. So you don't know. You just know you got the dog trained for your purposes and to do tasks for you, which is what the letter of the law says. And there is no service dog police department either. So, you know, for you Karens out there who think it's okay to go ahead and call people out on service dogs, there's actually a Class A misdemeanor out there for people that interfere with service dog teams. So, you know, if you think you're doing the society justice by trying to be the service dog police, you may find yourself on the wrong end of the law if you're not careful in certain jurisdictions. You know, but there are some, but that does not mean that the service dog and the team can get away with doing whatever they want. If you do see in a store or some other place a service dog misbehaving, whether it's defecating, urinating, or it's doing something that you feel is unsafe, you know, growling, baring its teeth, you know, you need to alert management because that's management's problem to handle that. And so I would suggest to you not to confront the person or the team, but to go to management and discuss with them your concerns that you're having with the service dog in question. Now, when it comes to etiquette, there is certain do's and don'ts when it comes to service dog teams. First of all, don't pet the dog. Don't pay attention to the dog. Don't look at the dog. Don't make eye contact with the dog. Don't talk to the dog. You're not going to hurt the dog's feelings because the dog's there to do a job. And the job is to pay attention to its handler. And if you're distracting the dog because you're making kissy faces at it, then you are doing the dog a disservice and also the handler a disservice as well, especially if it's a medical alert dog. But it is okay, but let me just say this. If you really, truly, by the bottom of your heart, have got to pet the service dog, for the love of God, at least please ask first. Don't just walk up and pet somebody's service dog, because you just don't know, first of all, whether or not it is a well-trained service dog, and that dog might nip at you if you just walk right up to it, or if that person is having an issue and the dog needs to pay attention to what's going on with its handler. But yeah, if you see a service dog team, give them wide berth. Don't get up on their space. Don't talk to the dog. Talk to the handler. And if you really want to pet it, do that. Never ever offer food or treats to the dog. Ever do that. That's just dog etiquette altogether. So, but to do that, be sure to talk to the owner. It's okay to ask questions, especially if you have questions about service dogs and what they do and what they don't do. Okay, unfortunately, I'm going to have to tie things up a little early today, just because I got a meeting that's coming up directly after this broadcast, so I need to get ready for that. And plus, unfortunately, we're a little short on because we were missing a guest today. But I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in that's able to watch. And for those of you who are watching this on rebroadcast, thank you again for watching. Just to let you know, next week we are going to try, now this is not 100%, but we're going to try to have a Dungeons & Dragons game on air with some of the other hosts on Saturday. So we'll try and do that. That's going to be Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WLFE-DB.com, or do a Facebook search on WLFE-DB Radio Network. And again, we thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, everybody, take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week. 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels. Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows. LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows. Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.